Welcome, everybody. This is the first episode in a series of I Will Teach You Chess, where we teach you a new concept in 10 minutes or less that you can use immediately. First game I'm going to show you is one of the most beautiful queen sacrifices I've played recently. Let's get right to it. I was playing black against a 2100 on Lee Chess on a stream. White played e4, c5. I opened with Sicilian, knight f3, d6, and now c3, trying to play d4. Get the center. So I decided to develop my knight and attack his pawn, effectively preventing d4, because then I would take his pawn. And now my opponent played a slightly weird move, e5. He actually could have played bishop e2 here, because I couldn't have taken the pawn anyway, because of a tactic, queen a4 check, a very common tactic. This is why we should always be aware of our opponent's checks and forcing moves, like attacks and captures at any point. So he didn't have to play e5. He did e5. I took the pawn because I don't want to move my knight back. He took. And now I thought his knight on e5 was good. My knight on b8 is bad. Let me trade my bad piece for his good piece, knight d7. He went back. So already we can see the opening kind of went wrong for white. He goes first, and yet I have two knights developed, and all he's done is move his knight 3 times. Something's definitely gone wrong, and I think it started with that move e5. So black is kind of taking over now. In this position, I played a6, which is a kind of a funky move, but I knew that he was trying to develop his bishop here or here, and I was preparing an attack against it. So he played bishop c4. I played b5. This is what I wanted to do. The reason I wanted to do this move is because I would get space on the queen side, and I could fianchetto my bishop. I was already thinking about ways to attack his king. Bishop here, e6 to castle, and bishop d6. I'm already thinking about ways to eyeball his king side. And that's like the precursor to any attack. So start pointing your pieces at the opponent's king. d4 was played. And I just castled. A lot of times I've seen people make mistake of taking stuff when they can see it. But one of the secrets of a strong player is that they maintain the tension if there's a trade, and only trade when it's beneficial to them. So in this position, if I trade, white can recapture and improve his position. But if white trades, I can recapture and improve my position. So this is what actually happens here. I castled, and my opponent is 2100 on Lee Chess. He took the pawn, which is a big mistake. He should have probably developed his bishop or his knight. He took, and now I'm able to just develop my knight for free. So he spent one move, which the pawn disappeared, so that was a waste of move, but my knight got to a better spot. Even optically, it looks much better on c5 than on d7. So I'm very happy, and that's the reason why I took with the knight. Another tip is that, you should probably help the pieces that are short-ranged. So knights are short-range pieces, so they need more help going up the board. So that's why I took with the knight instead of the bishop. Also, I'm attacking his bishop here, putting pressure, and putting pressure on important squares. So I'm basically taking over the space. Bishop e3, attacking my knight, but I decided to take the bishop. Now I have the 2 bishops, which is considered to be an advantage in chess, and I develop my bishop. So I'm threatening to take the knight on f3 actually, and that would double his pawns and create huge weakness on the king side. So he played knight bd2, and I developed all my minor pieces. And I've castled. So naturally, what you should do after developing your bishops and knights is to move your queen and connect the rooks. So what will be a harmonious place to move the queen? Queen c7. Doubling, making a battery, pressuring the pawn. So there's a nice flow to this position. Maybe I can put my knight on g4 and attack this pawn and bishop. A lot of threats here. So he played h3. Now it's time to develop my rooks. Rook to the open file. And here, my opponent, instead of moving the rook, which he should have, he played bishop g5, trying to double my pawns. Now, interestingly, in this position, might seem like I should defend against this threat of doubling my pawns, but what's more important than double pawns actually is how well your pieces are placed, piece activity. So another thing is my king might look unsafe. We'll explain this in a second. So I actually played queen c5 here, putting pressure on the bishop and maybe even sliding the queen closer to the king, and welcomed my opponent. Go ahead and do your plan. So he took, and then he played queen c2. Okay, he wants to play knight e4 and start to maybe take away my bishop or attack this pawn. Now, I was teaching a young student around 1600, and I asked him to evaluate this position. I asked him, who do you think is better? Whose king is safer? And he said, white's king is safer. Black's king is less safe. What do you guys think? The real answer is black's king is way safer than white's king, despite being open. And the reason is how well our pieces are placed. We're eyeballing his king side, putting pressure so well, and white is barely putting any pressure on our king. So despite there being a permanent opening here, all of our pieces are guarding our king effectively. And despite there being a cover for white's king, since there's so much pressure, the cover may not last. So black's king is safer, and black's pieces are better. Black's pawn structure could be better, but the pawn structure thing is not as important. So in this position, black needs to ramp up his attack very quickly. So I would like you to guess the move that I would play here, that you should play. How do you add more fuel to the fire? There's a party going on the king side, and you need to bring more toys. So I decided, let's make this weakness into a strength. King h8. Very typical maneuver. Our king is safely tucked away, and now it's time to bring the rooks. Now, when I played this move, I knew he was going to play knight e4. And I prepared something really fun that is in the title of the video. He played knight e4, and I played rook g8. Oh no, my queen. And I literally said that on the stream. My opponent didn't think too long. He thought I blundered my queen. All right, I would like you guys to pause the video and figure out, how do you make this work? Black to play and win. Last chance. Okay. If you said bishop takes knight, you are wrong, because it doesn't work. He just moves g3. He just moves g3, and then we can't sacrifice any further. We run out of stuff. We just run out of things. There's nothing else to do. So that doesn't work. I wish I could have, this move didn't exist, right? But, you know what? I see that there's a rook here doing nothing. And can we remove this pawn without investing any time? Yes, we can. Rook takes g2. Sack the queen, followed by sacrificing a rook. Now he has two choices, and I've calculated both. King takes rook or king to the corner. If king takes rook, then I bring this move with check. King has to go to h1, and then bishop f3, and a beautiful, beautiful checkmate. I need the bishops and the rooks. I have the minimum requirement for checkmate, and I've done it. I got it. So this was the plan. Rook and queen sacrifice. Now, in the game, he played king h1, which is the best move. And I don't have an immediate checkmate, but I can reload. Bishop takes f3. And surprisingly, even with an extra queen, there's nothing he can do to save the king, because there's this kind of a traffic jam for white. He played the move queen d3, attacking my bishop. So if I move my rook somewhere, he can take my bishop. For example, if I did this, he would just do that, and then I'm actually in trouble. But the most forcing move in chess is not a check, it's a double check. I played rook h2, double check, and a double check, your opponent is forced to move the king because they can't defend against both angles. And here, and finally, rook h1 mate. So, king h8, making lemonade out of the lemons, you know, and then rook g8. Oh no, my queen. Sack the rook, open up the king, and there's no escape. Now, the reason black's attack worked is because of all of these active pieces, right? I positioned my pieces in the best places I could, and then magically a beautiful tactic can manifest out of it. Hope this video helps, and I'll see you in the next lesson.